What's up, everyone? I'm James Lynch, and this is Early Look, the show where I take a look at an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, I'm going to be taking a look at the UFC 284 co-main event interim featherweight title fight between Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett. But before I give you my preview and pick, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Those three things really do help out this channel big time. Okay, great fight. Co-main event, like I mentioned there, Yair Rodriguez, Josh Emmett. If you've never watched the show before, basically I go through a bunch of stats, bunch of intangibles, and then I give you my pick at the very end of this thing. They may or may not have an effect on how you decide this fight, but I like to look at everything when it comes to breaking down fights. So let's get into the matchup, and we'll do a quick tail of the tape here, shall we? Yair Rodriguez, Josh Emmett. Yair Rodriguez 14-3, Josh Emmett 18-2, 30 years old to 37, 5'11" to 5'6", 71 to 70. So Yair Rodriguez is going to be younger, and he's going to be a little bit bigger in this fight. And why don't we start with Yair Rodriguez, shall we? Interesting matchup. Thank God this is 5 rounds. I mean, it has to be. It's an interim title, which is great. So you can see there, Yair Rodriguez. Whoops. There we go. Yair Rodriguez, you can see there, 14-3, 30 years old. He just turned 30 on October 6th. Yair Rodriguez, like I mentioned, 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. So he's 7 years younger than Josh Emmett. He's going to have a 5-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. So he will be the bigger guy in this fight. He is the tough Latin America tournament winner. He's got fight of the night 5 times against Charles Rosa, Alex Caceres, the Korean Zombie, Jeremy Stephens, and Max Holloway. He's got performance of the night 3 times against Andre Fili, BJ Penn, and Chen Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. He's got the latest knockout in UFC history, 4 minutes and 59 seconds of round 5. Of course, that crazy elbow, one of the best knockouts of all time. And he also, for that, got knockout of the year in 2018 for that fight against the Korean Zombie. Yair Rodriguez, like a lot of fighters, did not have an amateur debut. He went straight to the pros in October of 2011. And get this, I actually checked this out. This is crazy. This doesn't happen on Early Look too often, but I went back and looked. So Yair Rodriguez makes his professional MMA debut October 10th, 2011. Josh Emmett made his professional debut October 8th, 2011. So they're 2 days removed from both making their pro debuts. That's pretty crazy. That doesn't happen too often here on Early Look, especially with the fact that Emmett's so much older. Yair Rodriguez would not make his UFC debut until the tough Latin America, the UFC 180 was when he made his debut. That was November of 2014. Yair Rodriguez is 9-2 with 1 no contest in his career. He's got 4 stoppage victories. Some notable wins in his career include Dan Hooker, Andre Fili, who has been in and out of the rankings. BJ Penn, got to put him on there, former champion. The Korean Zombie, who's obviously fought for a title. Jeremy Stephens. Those are notable in the sense that that was like a kind of an interesting rivalry. Remember that first fight where they were throwing everything at Stephens in the cage? And then obviously Brian Ortega, his last fight was a notable win, although you can see it clear as day that there was a shoulder injury. Unfortunate what happened. This has been a weird year for injuries. How many main events have had injuries in the main event? It's been crazy. So yeah, Yair Rodriguez adding to that list. Aside from that, very, very close fight sort of going into that. Some notable losses. Frankie Edgar losing that fight by doctor stoppage. That was a fight where he was completely outclassed. Looked like it was way too much of a step up. Edgar dominated the fight. And then Max Holloway, and to his credit, even though he lost that fight, I think Yair Rodriguez definitely showed that he had leveled up. Holloway did win the fight, but it was also a fight where Yair, again, brought it as best as he could. Yair's had a number of layoffs in his career, going from Frankie Edgar to the Korean Zombie. Understandable with how badly he lost that fight. There was a 546-day layoff going from 2017 to 2018 there. There was a big layoff from the Korean Zombie to Jeremy Stephens. The first fight, there was a 315-day layoff. Going from the second Jeremy Stephens fight to Max Holloway, there was a 751-day layoff there. And granted, there's some USADA stuff in there. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then going from Holloway to Ortega, there was a 245-day layoff. And then going from Ortega to this fight, there's a 210-day layoff. So Rodriguez, again, has not fought as much as I'm sure he'd like, just due to a bunch of different factors. And we'll get into those in a sec. Remember the fights against Zabit that never ended up happening. So there was the first fight against Zabit, UFC 228 on the Woodley and Till card, Rodriguez getting an injury in that one. And he was supposed to fight Zabit again, although this time another injury, a fractured ankle. Too bad we never got that fight, by the way. What a great fight that would have been. And then the Max Holloway fight in July, there was a Holloway injury there. And then he also had that USADA suspension in between here for not locating his whereabouts. So USADA has a rule that you have to let them know where they can test you. And he violated that, I think, 3 times. I think it's 3 strikes and you're out, so to speak. So he violated that 3 times. And basically, they suspended him for 6 months. So that was in December of 2020. So another reason why we have not seen Rodriguez be as active as he should be. So bad luck with injuries. The USADA thing, which is his fault 100%. You got to be more organized. Get Google Calendar or get a better phone plan or something like that, and that's pretty much it. So that's what's kept Yair from not competing as much as he'd like to. Now, all that said, let's get to Josh Emmett, his opponent. So you can see there, Josh Emmett, 18-2 record. He's the number 7th ranked featherweight. And by the way, I should mention, I can't remember if I said it or not, Yair is the number 2 ranked featherweight. Josh Emmett has 6 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 9 decisions. He's 37 years old. He'll be turning 38 in March. So just a month after their fight, he'll be 38. He's 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. Josh Emmett made his amateur debut way back in July of 2011. And then, like I mentioned there, October 8th, 2011 is when he made his pro debut, 2 days before Yair Rodriguez. Made his UFC debut in May of 2016. So it was a bit of a grind for him to get to the UFC, having a number of fights in West Coast FC, which I'm not sure if that promotion still exists. But yeah, so he made his debut against John Tuck at UFC Fight Night 87. That was May of 2016. So by that time, Yair Rodriguez already had 4 UFC fights. Something to keep in mind there. Even though Emmett technically made his pro debut before Rodriguez, it would be Rodriguez who had been in the UFC earlier. Josh Emmett is 9-2 in the UFC. Some notable wins include Ricardo Lamas, Michael Johnson, got a finish there, Mirsad Bektik, who at the time was 13-1, Shane Burgos, Dan Ige, who's ranked, and Calvin Kattar in his last fight. And we'll talk about the Kattar fight. You can see a split decision there. A lot of people feeling like maybe that should have gone the other way. Some notable losses. Des Green, he lost that fight. I was at that fight in Buffalo. Very close fight. One thing for context, you guys got to remember, where was that fight? It was in Buffalo. Where's Des Green from? Buffalo. Very, very close fight in that one. And again, that was at lightweight, and we'll talk about his weight classes in a little bit. And then the Jeremy Stevens fight, lost that one, was finished in that fight. There was a bit of a weird stuff happening with shots to the back of the head. That's one I need to go back and revisit. But I remember at the time thinking like, it's kind of iffy about that finish. So I mentioned there, Josh Emmett been in a number of different weight classes. We'll talk about those. He's had 11 fights at featherweight. He's fought 7 times at lightweight, and he's had 2 catchweight fights, one at 168 and another one at 148.5. That was the fight, the short notice fight against Ricardo Lamas, where he missed weight for 146. He hit at 148. So he's had 2 catchweight fights, 7 lightweight fights, and 11 featherweight fights. He's also had a few layoffs in his career. They're mostly injury related, but you can see there going from Jeremy Stevens to Michael Johnson. There was a 399-day layoff. That's the one where he had a bunch of facial injuries. Going from Bektik to Shane Burgos, there was a 343-day layoff. Going from Burgos to Ige, there was a 539-day layoff. Going from Ige to Kattar, there was a 189-day layoff. And then going from Kattar to Rodriguez for this fight, 238-day layoff. So both guys, again, not as active as I'm sure they'd like to be. Now, some of the injuries that he's had, Emmett was actually supposed to fight at the UFC Vancouver card. That was at UFC on Fox 21. He's supposed to fight Jeremy Kennedy. What amazing if that would have ended up happening. But he had an injury there, couldn't take that one. And then I think people forget he was supposed to fight Arnold Allen back in January of 2020. He had an injury in that fight, undisclosed in that one. Now, Emmett has had a number of decisions, as you can see here. Let's talk about some of those close fights that he's had. Let's start first with the Shane Burgos fight. That was back in UFC Vegas 3, June 2020. And that was where? Right here. So I went back and looked at the media scorecards. 16 media members scoring the fight for Emmett, 2 scoring it a draw, and 2 scoring it for Burgos. So most people felt like Emmett won that fight. Dan Ige, closer fight. UFC 269, December 2021. 7 media members scoring the fight for Emmett, 6 media members scoring the fight for Dan Ige. So again, might have gone the other way. Josh Emmett and Kattar, this is probably the most famous one. I still hear people talking about this, and I get it. Trust me, it was a very, very, very close fight. I don't think it was a robbery. But the media certainly made it look like it was a robbery, because if you go back and look at the scorecards here, that was UFC Fight Night back in June of earlier this year. 5 media members scoring the fight for Emmett, 14 media members scoring the fight for Calvin Kattar. So again, he doesn't win that fight. He's not getting this shot. It's probably Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez fighting for an interim title, not Josh Emmett. But here we are. The optics are this. Josh Emmett is on a 5-fight win streak. So you got to look at that. I mean, again, people feel like it should be a loss in his last fight, but still, that's what we have now. Now, the interesting thing here, for whatever reason, there's no odds for this fight, which is interesting because they have odds for Whitaker and Costa and Makhachev and Volkanovski, but the Whitaker-Costa fight's not 100%. This one is. So I don't know why they don't have odds out yet for it, but I went and looked on Best Fight Odds, no bueno. If I had to guess, I would imagine Rodriguez is going to be the favorite just because he's younger. But yeah, it's a very, very, very interesting fight here as far as the 5-round interim featherweight title. So yeah, what is my pick? Let's get to that right now. I've been a Josh Emmett guy for a while. Just going to preface by saying this. I think, again, say what you want about the Kattar fight. Outside of that, this guy's been a little underrated. He's got some good knockout wins. He's got some serious power. That's the one intriguing thing here. He's got really good wrestling, really good power. Again, not the most notable featherweight. Like you often don't hear about him in, you know, with Volkanovski, just because he's not really like, you know, a really outspoken personality. He doesn't have sort of the, you know, unique fighter look or anything like that. And he's a bit older. So I feel like in some ways Emmett has kind of been disrespected a little bit here. Yair Rodriguez, definitely more popular, definitely more exciting. He's definitely the more popular fighter between the two. You know, he's from Mexico. Obviously there's a lot of cachet there as well. And he is a more exciting fighter here. So in terms of my pick, I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know if Josh Emmett is going to be able to knock out Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez has only been finished one time. It was a doctor stoppage, knockout, so to speak, against Frankie Edgar. And, you know, again, he's fought guys with power since then. Stevens has got power. Korean Zombie's got power. Ortega, who knows if that's going a little bit later, how that fight looks. So, and Max Holloway, I mean, he can finish fights too, and he wasn't able to finish Rodriguez there as well. So we got to talk a little bit about the durability of Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez, like I mentioned, 7 years younger. He's a little bit faster. Yes, he's had some injuries. However, you look at his last couple of fights, he looks like he belongs in that top 5, right? I think before, when he fought Edgar, you thought, too much of a step up. I think he's since arrived then, and he's fixed some of those mistakes and some of those things that he had earlier in his career. Now, Emmett, again, he's durable as hell as well. Again, you look at that fight against, Jeremy Stevens, a bit of a controversial stoppage, I think. At least I remember back then in terms of the shots to the back of the head, but he was finished in that fight, and he's also had a lot of injuries and a lot of layoffs too. So as far as like the layoffs and the activity, I think they both sort of cancel each other out. I think they both had their fair share of injuries, and I think they both, have had a lot of layoffs. So that kind of cancels it out. I think Emmett's got better wrestling. I think Emmett's got more power, but the problem is he's older. Rodriguez is faster, and Rodriguez is a little bit more dynamic. I think those will be keys to him beating Josh Emmett here. Now, this is one of those ones that I had a hard time picking because I do think Emmett can win this fight. Again, I literally could see Emmett grinding out Rodriguez or even potentially knocking him out in this fight because I think he could do both of those things. But I think what's more likely is you see Rodriguez go out there and win a decision. Now, look, I know it's 5 rounds, but we're talking about 2 guys who've only been finished once in their career. I got to look at those stats and say, hey, these guys are pretty durable. Rodriguez, I mean, let's go back at some of the finishes that Rodriguez has had, right? So the Ortega fight was an injury, not really a finish there. Stevens was a decision. Stevens, the first fight was an eye gouge, nothing there. The Zombie knockout was at the last second. He was going to go to the scorecards and probably lose that fight, right? So that you can't really, I mean, yes, it's a knockout, but again, it was late in that fight. BJ Penn on the tail of his career got knocked out. Andre Feely, we've seen him knocked out a few times. So this is what I mean. Like, as good as Rodriguez is in terms of power and knocking guys out, he's not like he doesn't have any really good knockout wins, if that makes sense. I know you could look at the Zombie fight, but still, that was at the last second. Like he was a second away from going to the scorecards. That's kind of what I'm looking at here. So I don't know if Rodriguez is going to knock out Emmett. I think Emmett is durable enough, and again, Emmett fought a guy in Cater who couldn't finish him either. So I tend to think Rodriguez is going to win a decision here. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish we would see a finish. Maybe we will see Emmett knock him out or vice versa. But if I had to go to tiers of what is most likely, I think the most likely scenario is Yair Rodriguez winning a decision. I think the second most likely scenario is Yair Rodriguez finishing Josh Emmett. And then I think the third most likely situation is Josh Emmett taking Rodriguez to a decision. I don't think he finishes Rodriguez, even though Emmett has knockout power. Again, Rodriguez, very tough to take out. So my official pick on this fight is going to be Yair Rodriguez by 5-round decision over Josh Emmett. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who are you picking in this fight? Again, close one, very close one. That's why I like this matchup. I think Emmett, again, a little bit underrated. I think Rodriguez definitely has leveled up over the years. Very curious to see how this plays out. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel while you're there. And while you're there, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. I'm putting content on this channel every single day, so you don't want to miss anything. That's what the notification bell is for. And as always, if there's any other fights you guys want me to preview, just let me know in the comments. I would be more than happy to preview something that you guys want to see. And let's talk about this fight. Let me know who you think's going to win. Let's be respectful, though. I'm more than happy to talk about these fights with you. Just don't be a douche about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just don't say you're stupid or you don't know what you're talking about or anything like that. Let's say, hey, I think Rodriguez is better in this area, or hey, I think you missed this in the breakdown. I'm more than happy to talk about stuff like that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I'm James Lynch. I'll see you next time.